King Charles has permanently replaced Prince Harry. At 10:47 this morning, the Sword of Honor, the highest symbol of royal military authority, was officially transferred to 18-year-old Prince James. The Duke of Sussex has now been formally stripped of his most significant projected military role. Is the king simply securing the operational future of the monarchy, or is this a definitive penalty against his own son? Hit subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments, because the confidential internal timeline we are releasing right now changes everything you know about the British royal family. Let us examine the exact timeline of what just transpired behind closed doors. On the morning of May 2, 2026, at exactly 10:47, the heavy double doors of the main drawing room at Clarence House were locked from the inside. According to the internal security logs and briefing documents our investigative team has secured, this highly restricted constitutional proceeding lasted for precisely 12 minutes. There were no press photographers allowed inside the perimeter. There were no public announcements made beforehand, and no standard media briefings prepared for the immediate aftermath. The palace executed this massive transfer of power with absolute institutional silence, treating it not as a family gathering, but as a rigid, irreversible change in state protocol. Prince James, the Earl of Wessex, entered the room wearing a standard-issue dark military uniform. For his entire life, the 18-year-old has been kept deliberately out of the global media spotlight, raised strictly as a private citizen under the explicit guidance of the late Queen. However, as he stood in the center of the drawing room today, he formally transitioned into a senior working capacity. King Charles stepped forward to present him with the Sword of Honor, bypassing the established line of succession to secure a working representative. To comprehend the true magnitude of this 12-minute meeting, you must understand the strict constitutional protocol behind this specific sword. This item is not a simple ceremonial antique brought out for public parades. It is the definitive emblem of royal military authority. Historically, this sword is reserved exclusively for the direct heir to the throne, or the most senior working royal actively defending the crown's interests across the armed forces. For years, leading constitutional experts and senior military officials projected that this specific honor and its accompanying duties would eventually be assumed by the Duke of Sussex. That established projection ended entirely at 10:53 this morning. Insiders present in the room confirmed the exchange was brief, formal, and strictly procedural. King Charles handed over the sword and reportedly delivered a very clear warning regarding the future of the royal establishment. The king stated that the institution can only rely on individuals who are physically present to serve the nation. He explicitly defined the sword as the permanent mark of the one who stays. This was a direct, calculated reinforcement of the palace's new operational standard. You cannot maintain a leadership role within the British military or hold elite status from a different continent. James accepted the hilt of the sword. According to senior courtiers standing just feet away during the exchange, the 18-year-old did not deliver a prepared speech or a lengthy, sentimental statement. Instead, he made a single, direct declaration to the king and the attending government officials. Holding the sword, James reportedly stated that the era of divided loyalties has officially ended. Within those critical 12 minutes, the entire operational structure of the British monarchy fundamentally shifted. King Charles elevated a young nephew who currently meets all strict residency and active service requirements, effectively closing the military chapter for his non-resident son permanently. The transfer of the Sword of Honor establishes a hard legal precedent that will govern the institution for decades to come. The palace has drawn a clear, unyielding line. High-ranking military patronages, executive roles, and elite royal privileges are no longer guaranteed by birthright, historical precedent, or bloodline. They are now strictly conditional. They depend entirely upon active, daily service and uninterrupted physical presence within the United Kingdom. The Duke of Sussex's absence has now been codified into a permanent institutional replacement, leaving no room for a future return to military prominence. But wait, the transfer of the military sword was just a highly visible distraction. The most profound shift in modern royal history did not happen inside a grand drawing room. It happened in a server room, concealed within a 4-minute technological blackout. Ask yourself, why would the official royal website completely crash on the exact same morning the king made his definitive move? Our investigative team has secured access to a highly confidential constitutional framework currently circulating within Whitehall. Behind closed doors, officials are calling it the 183-day doctrine. This new standard is strictly mathematical and entirely unyielding. The premise is straightforward. If a member of the royal family does not physically reside on British soil for at least 183 days out of the calendar year, they automatically forfeit their operational privileges. The monarchy is no longer treating royal status as an unconditional birthright. It is now treated as a residency requirement. You simply cannot serve a nation from a different time zone. However, the framework contains a hidden clause, quietly designated as Appendix 3. This specific provision extends the strict residency mandate beyond the non-working royal, applying it directly to their immediate lineage. At exactly 11:03 yesterday morning, the official website, royal.uk, abruptly went offline. Users worldwide were suddenly met with a blank screen and a standard 503 service unavailable error. IT experts understand that a 503 error on a highly secured, government-grade server is rarely a random accident. It is almost always a scheduled system override to push through a massive data update. Exactly 4 minutes later, at 11:07 in the morning, the site refreshed and came back online. What appeared on the screen next sent immediate shockwaves through newsrooms across the globe. The official line of succession had been updated. The names occupying the 6th and 7th positions, Archie and Lilibet, had completely vanished from the registry. There was no placeholder left behind, no asterisk explaining their absence, and no press release offering context. The numerical list simply bypassed them altogether, moving straight down the line to the Duke of York. Within seconds, verified screenshots from senior reporters at Reuters and Associated Press were circulating rapidly across all major social media platforms. The digital evidence was irrefutable. How could the institution execute such a monumental change without a lengthy, highly publicized parliamentary debate? The answer lies in the strategic use of internal royal prerogative. By activating Appendix 3 of the Residency Doctrine, the institution quietly reclassified those specific positions. The palace effectively concluded that individuals permanently domiciled abroad, with no foreseeable plan to return, possess no practical capacity to serve the throne in the future. Therefore, maintaining their place in the official succession was deemed a constitutional vulnerability that needed to be resolved immediately. This was not an administrative error, nor was it a temporary website glitch. It was a precise, calculated move to streamline the future of the monarchy and sever the final institutional tie to California. The palace did not just remove operational titles, they redrew the entire map of the royal future. By erasing those names from the digital public record, the king ensured that the crown remains firmly and exclusively anchored to those who are actually present to carry its weight. The message is absolute. If you do not share the soil, you do not share the succession. While London embraces the dawn of a streamlined, highly disciplined monarchy, a very different reality is unfolding across the Pacific. In California, a carefully constructed, highly publicized empire is unraveling in real time. The events that took place inside a Montecito estate at exactly 2:14 this morning will leave you absolutely speechless. The sprawling, multi-million-dollar mansion was entirely quiet. The staff had long since retired for the night, leaving only the faint, distant hum of the estate's extensive security systems. Then, the silence was abruptly broken. An encrypted private phone, a secure line designated exclusively for their elite legal representatives in London, began to ring. At 2:14 in the morning, a sudden international call from the United Kingdom rarely delivers good news. According to highly placed sources connected to the couple's inner management circle, the next few moments brought an undeniable shock. The lead attorney on the other end of the line delivered the update straight from Whitehall contacts. The royal website had refreshed. The official line of succession was fundamentally altered. The names of their children were gone. Our sources report that Meghan stood entirely frozen. A baccarat crystal water glass slipped from her hand, hitting the polished marble floor and shattering instantly. The sharp sound echoed through the high-ceilinged room, serving as a harsh physical manifestation of the news they had just received. Harry, sitting across from her, reportedly dropped his head into his hands, his breathing turning heavy and uneven. In that precise second, the true gravity of King Charles's decision finally registered. Every single point of leverage he thought he held had just evaporated into the California night. There was absolutely nothing left to negotiate. For years, the overarching strategy in Montecito relied on one fundamental assumption: the palace would never involve the next generation. They firmly believed the institution, heavily focused on public optics and family sentiment, would always draw a strict boundary when it came to the grandchildren. That assumption proved to be a profound miscalculation. The Sussex management team had long viewed the children's positions in the succession line as their ultimate safety net. It was their final, undeniable link to the British crown, the Golden Bridge, that kept their personal brand relevant in international circles, high-profile media deals, and corporate boardrooms. Now, that bridge has been systematically dismantled. The king's strict enforcement of the new residency doctrine demonstrated that institutional preservation will always supersede personal family ties. By establishing that future succession requires physical presence and active preparation within the United Kingdom, the palace effectively neutralized the Californian strategy. Without their numerical positions on that official list, the children are no longer constitutional figures in waiting. They are, for all legal, commercial, and practical purposes, simply private American citizens growing up in Santa Barbara. The realization hitting the Montecito estate this morning is absolute. The royal connection, the very foundation that fueled their entire commercial identity, has been sharply and permanently severed. They built a media empire on the premise that they could step away from the daily duty while permanently retaining the prestige. At 2:14 this morning, the ultimate reality check was delivered, and the sudden weight of their new, ordinary status finally set in. Do you think losing royal status is the ultimate consequence? Think again. In the highly transactional world of Hollywood, losing your commercial appeal is the absolute bottom line. And for the Sussex brand, that sudden loss was quantified in hours, costing them more than $52 million. Let us look at how the entertainment industry actually operates. Hollywood is incredibly pragmatic. It does not run on sentiment. It runs on leverage, exclusivity, and proximity to power. When a public figure possesses the active prestige of the British crown, studio doors open automatically, and contracts are signed with unprecedented advances. We saw the first real cracks begin to form back in 2023, when major streaming platforms started demanding higher productivity to justify their massive initial investments. But what happened this morning was not merely a renegotiation based on content output. When the palace formally removed those names from the official succession registry, the core asset of the Californian enterprise vanished entirely. Without that institutional backing, they are no longer global royalty to corporate executives. They are simply celebrities competing in a heavily saturated market. The financial fallout from London's decision was almost instantaneous. Our financial insiders confirmed that within just 3 hours of the royal website updating, an urgent email was dispatched from a major, unnamed entertainment investment fund in Los Angeles. This fund had been quietly finalizing a massive, multi-year family image and lifestyle franchise, a project designed to capitalize heavily on the children's royal lineage. The email sent to the couple's representation was brief, cold, and legally binding. They completely terminated the agreement. The exact value of that canceled contract? $52,750,000. Gone, with a single keystroke. The investors realized immediately that marketing a royal family franchise is impossible when the family is no longer officially recognized within the royal hierarchy. The unique selling proposition simply ceased to exist. This sudden evaporation of guaranteed future income triggers an immediate, highly critical financial crisis behind the gates in Montecito. Let us break down the stark economic reality they are currently facing. Running a massive independent operation in Southern California requires an immense, continuous flow of cash. Financial analysts monitoring the estate estimate that the mortgage on their sprawling property sits at roughly $30 million. Furthermore, maintaining a highly trained, private security detail running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, costs upwards of $3 million annually. These are fixed, non-negotiable expenses that demand consistent, high-tier revenue just to keep the lights on. When a $52 million deal abruptly falls through, the financial safety net disappears with it. Without the immediate injection of new commercial funds, their liquidity will rapidly begin to dry up. Wealth managers who understand the elite real estate market suggests that operating at this extreme level of expenditure without matching guaranteed income is entirely unsustainable. The math is relentless. If they cannot secure a major pivot or a massive new revenue stream immediately, they could be facing severe cash flow issues. Industry insiders are whispering that without a rapid financial intervention, they could be looking at a catastrophic liquidity crunch, even potential default on their primary assets within the next 30 days. The clock in California is ticking louder than ever. Many observers looking at the events of the past few days will inevitably ask, is King Charles being excessively harsh? Is stripping privileges away from his own family a step too far? Our investigative team has carefully reviewed the internal policy shifts, and the reality is far more calculated. This is not an act of personal revenge or a bitter family feud. It is a highly strategic intervention designed to ensure the long-term survival of the institution itself. For the past decade, the British monarchy has been navigating a very fragile relationship with the public. The modern taxpayer has grown increasingly vocal, showing little to no patience for public figures who retain the immense prestige and financial benefits of the crown without putting in the daily, grueling work. King Charles is acutely aware of this shifting national mood. He understands that the institution can no longer afford to carry the weight of absentee members. His strict enforcement of the new residency doctrine is a direct, calculated response to this public frustration. He is sending an unambiguous message to both the nation and his own family. The era of unconditional, lifelong royal privilege is officially over. Moving forward, the honor of representing the crown must be earned through visible, consistent effort on British soil. Status is no longer guaranteed by DNA. It is validated strictly through service. To fully grasp the effectiveness of the king's strategy, you simply have to look at the striking contrast between the two figures at the center of this shift. On one side, you have the Duke of Sussex. Over the past several years, global audiences have watched him repeatedly air private grievances on international television, essentially trading intimate family history for lucrative corporate media deals. The public has grown exhausted by the endless cycle of complaints. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have Prince James. For 18 years, the Earl of Wessex has been raised almost entirely out of the public eye. There have been no tell-all interviews, no sensational podcast deals, and no public demands for privacy while simultaneously seeking the spotlight. He has been defined by quiet observation and strict, unwavering discipline. The moment he came of age, he did not seek a camera. He stepped onto the carpet at Clarence House, accepted the highest symbol of military authority, and bowed his head to the crown. This sharp contrast makes the young prince the most powerful asset the Buckingham Palace communications team has possessed in years. In a digital era defined by endless noise and relentless celebrity controversy, James represents the one thing the monarchy desperately needs to project: absolute stability. He is a pristine model, completely insulated from the heavy, dramatic baggage that has plagued the royal family over the last decade. By elevating a figure who is so rigorously disciplined and profoundly discreet, the palace has found the perfect antidote to the Californian narrative. They are not merely filling a vacant military role. They are introducing the public to an uncorrupted standard of modern royalty. James proves that the enduring power of the crown does not come from dominating the daily news cycle, but from a quiet, unbreakable commitment to duty. When backed completely into a corner, what is the only remaining move? According to the latest intelligence gathered by our legal correspondents, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are not planning to step away quietly. Instead, they are preparing to launch what could be the most intense and complex legal confrontation the High Court in London has witnessed in modern history. We have received verified leaks from individuals closely connected to their primary legal representation. Right now, behind closed doors, high-level attorneys are actively drafting an unprecedented lawsuit aimed directly at the British government and the Crown. The core of their strategy is highly aggressive. They are preparing to claim severe violations of human rights, systemic discrimination, and the unlawful deprivation of legal rights. The absolute focal point of this impending lawsuit is the abrupt removal of their children from the official line of succession. Their legal team plans to argue that stripping these inherited positions without a formal parliamentary vote or due process constitutes an illegal overreach of royal authority. They are attempting to frame the king's recent actions not merely as an internal family dispute over titles, but as a direct, unconstitutional attack on their children's fundamental legal standing. But what are their actual chances of winning a case of this magnitude? We consulted with leading constitutional scholars and senior barristers who specialize in the intricate relationship between the monarchy and the British legal system. Their consensus is virtually unanimous. Attempting to sue the reigning monarch and the state in their own capital is a spectacularly dangerous gamble. The legal threshold to challenge a royal prerogative, especially one concerning the official line of succession, residency requirements, and national protocol, is almost impossibly high. Courts historically do not interfere with the sovereign's right to manage the internal structure of the royal house. Furthermore, the financial risk tied to this strategy is absolutely staggering. Taking the crown to the High Court involves astronomical legal fees, requiring the retention of the most expensive legal minds in the world for an extended period. If the Sussex management team loses this case, and constitutional experts strongly predict they will not only face an embarrassing, highly publicized defeat, but they will also be held liable for millions in court costs. This single, desperate lawsuit could completely drain the last of their remaining financial reserves, turning a constitutional setback into a total economic collapse. History rarely rewards hesitation, and the British monarchy has just proven its capacity for decisive action. Over the past few days, we have watched a king make the ultimate choice, prioritizing the operational stability of the crown over the ties of his own bloodline. We have seen a young, strictly disciplined prince step out of the shadows to accept the highest military honor. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in California, two former senior royals are watching the entire foundation of their commercial brand crumble. The stage is set for a final, definitive showdown. Will they move forward with this incredibly risky legal war and gamble the last of their resources? Or will they finally accept the reality of their new status and step back from the global stage entirely? The clock is ticking, and the decisions made in the next 48 hours will cement their permanent place in history.